Welcome to 5 Minute Bible, your daily guide for your daily reading. Today's June the 11th, and we'll be in 1 Kings 5 through 6 and 2 Chronicles 2 through 3. Now today we arrive at one of the great milestones in redemptive history, and we're not continuing in Proverbs for a specific reason, because the next chapters in Proverbs are compiled wisdom sayings from Solomon, but they didn't get compiled until the time of Hezekiah. So because that's later in the timeline, today we're going to go back to the story of Solomon that's recorded in Kings and Chronicles. In that way, for centuries, God's people have worshiped through a tabernacle. From Sinai to the wilderness and through Joshua's conquest, the era of the judges, the reign of David, and now on to the kingdom of Solomon, the covenant story has been moving steadily towards this very moment. In 1 Kings 5 through 6 and in 2 Chronicles 2 through 3, Solomon begins constructing a temple, a permanent house of worship where God will dwell among his people. After weeks of studying wisdom, we now watch wisdom take its visible form in stone, cedar, gold, and glory. And in that way, the preparations begin as Solomon enters into an alliance with Hiram, king of Tyre, securing the materials and the craftsmen necessary for the project. Massive quantities of cedar, stone, and timber and labor are gathered, and the scale of the undertaking immediately reveals that this is no ordinary building project. Construction begins in the 4th year of Solomon's reign. The temple is built according to precise measurements and detailed craftsmanship that God had given to David. And the interior is overlaid with gold and adorned with carvings of cherubim and palm trees, flowers, and other images that intentionally echo the Garden of Eden. Because that's where God comes and dwells with his people. Now the temple will be where God comes and dwells with his people. At the center of this structure stands the most holy place, or the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant will eventually rest. This inner sanctuary represents the dwelling place of God's special presence among his covenant people. Throughout the account, attention is repeatedly given to beauty, order, precision, holiness, and covenant faithfulness. Everything is constructed according to God's purposes and dedicated to his worship. So as you read today, I want you to ask the following question. Why is God so concerned with establishing a dwelling place among his people? Well, these chapters show that the goal of redemption is not merely forgiveness, victory, or blessing, but the goal is communion with God. So what the whole Bible is about is God dwelling with his people. And God redeems his people so that he may dwell among them, that he would be their God and they would be his people forever. And in that way, the central pattern in these chapters is the movement from wisdom to worship. Throughout Proverbs, wisdom has been building an ordered people. And now wisdom begins constructing an ordered house for the worship of Yahweh. This connection is deeply important because the temple does not emerge in the middle of chaos. It emerges after the kingdom has been established, ordered, instructed, and stabilized. The external house reflects the internal formation that wisdom has been producing all along. Now, another striking pattern is the restoration of Eden in the temple. The carvings of trees and flowers and cherubim and garden-like abundance are not minuscule details. They are theological declarations. The temple is intentionally presented as a miniature picture of the garden itself, a symbolic restoration of Eden where God dwells with man. The temple, therefore, becomes far more than just architecture. It is theology that is carved in stone. Every measurement and room and ornament, every layer of gold is proclaiming that God is holy, glorious, matchless in his beauty and splendor, and worthy of all our worship. Heaven and earth meet here in this unique covenant structure. And this presses into our life with profound significance because human beings were created for communion with God. Every longing for meaning and beauty and security and worship and belonging all find their answer in God's presence. The temple reminds us that the greatest blessing that God could ever give his people is not gold and treasure and long life and wisdom. The greatest gift that God could give us is himself. And in that way, these chapters point directly to Jesus Christ, who is the true and the greater temple. Solomon's temple was magnificent, absolutely, but it was never the final destination of God's redemptive plan. The temple existed because God's presence dwelt among his people. And yet, in the fullness of time, God did something even greater than the Jerusalem temple. The eternal Son took on flesh and tabernacled among us. Christ became the true meeting place between God and man. He is the temple where we go to meet our God. Unlike the original temple, which contained sacrifices and priests and altars and sacred spaces that separated sinful humanity from God's holiness, Christ fulfills all of that. He's the true priest, the true sacrifice, the true temple through whom sinners will gain access to the Father. But the story continues even beyond that, because through union with Jesus, believers themselves become living stones as a part of that dwelling place that God is building by his Spirit throughout the centuries. The temple points forward not only to Christ, but to the church as God's living temple that exists on earth as the place where God will meet with sinful man, where God's presence will fill the entire earth. The temple of Solomon is glorious, but its greatest purpose is not itself. It's to point beyond itself to the greater glory of Christ in the day when God will dwell with his people forever. So as you read these chapters, pay careful attention to the beauty and the order, the symbolism that's woven throughout the temple, and the explicit details that are given. Because tomorrow we will continue exploring the temple itself and discover how every furnishing, basin, pillar, decoration contributes to the breathtaking picture of God's glory dwelling among his people on the earth. But with that, read your Bible carefully, devotionally, and joyfully, and may the Lord use his word to sanctify you completely, and we will continue our journey tomorrow. God bless you.